Folks, welcome into sportsbookreview.com. It's Friday, and it's time to talk some football here in the offseason right here at sportsbookreview.com. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. We are your sportsreview.com NFL football team, and it's our job, Kyle, to keep the people in the know in the offseason as we approach NFL training camps. Way to wind down the week. Who cares? Let's get in here and talk some NFL before we celebrate Saturday and Sunday, Kyle.
Damn right. And listen, NFL season, I know it feels far away. It's like it's happening soon. Like before we know, we're going to do 4th of July and then boom, it's preseason football. So we're really, really close. It's been an interesting week, obviously. Julio Jones finally gets traded. Of course, some weird stuff with Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson apparently now feels like he's calling the shots. It's a weird time to call the shots. So it's going to be a fun show. Looking forward to it. Football Friday. We're working for the weekend. Let's get it done.
Everybody's working for the weekend. But before we get there, we got some hot topics here to cover, particularly now seeing on the horizon maybe Deshaun Watson will be on the move. Now, the funny part about this overall, Kyle, is we take a look at Deshaun Watson. And if you ask him, hey, do you want to go to Seattle? Oh, my God, I would love to go to Seattle. Would you like to go to the 49ers? Oh, my God, the 49ers. Would you like to go to Jacksonville? Sign me up for it. He wants to go everywhere because he doesn't want to stay with the Houston Texans. So the interesting part that I'm going to ask you, Kyle, going to the Denver Broncos, it is a really good fit because I love the defense. The offensive line is decent. You have a lot of weapons at wide receiver. It seems like the perfect fit for Deshaun Watson, but just because Deshaun says he wants to go doesn't mean a deal could be worked out here, Kyle.
Yeah, it's crazy, Donnie, right? Like at the start of the offseason, it was everybody wanted Deshaun Watson, and he basically could just say the team he wanted to go to, and he had all the leverage, right? And now he has zero leverage. That's what happens when you start swinging your thing around and doing weird stuff with women. And, when you act like, when you play stupid games, you win stupid prizes. So now you don't get to decide where you want to go. And look, now Denver's on the map now, and I'm sure they're happy that he said he wants to go there. But can you honestly see any team pulling the trigger and upsetting everything when it's very likely? I know depositions won't start on this case until sometime in February. That won't stop the NFL from putting him on the exempt list. That won't stop the NFL from suspending him when they're done with their investigation. It's very, very unlikely that Deshaun Watson's going to be able to play in the first, 4, 6, 8 games of the season, maybe longer. So right now, Deshaun Watson wants to go anywhere where a team wants him because can you think of a team coming out right now? Honestly, Donnie, can you see a PR team, a head coach, someone coming out and going, you know what? We want Deshaun Watson. That's a PR nightmare for the team. I can't imagine a single owner in the league right now okaying that. So it's cool that you want to go to Denver. But I think right now Denver's like, we'll deal with Teddy Bridgewater and Jesus Christ, Drew Lock for now. We don't need to have the entire universe on us for bringing in a potential sexual predator to our roster because he wants to do so. It's a really weird situation, but I would imagine he does not end up in Denver. I can't see anyone offering anything substantial until this thing's cleared up.
And it's been very quiet here, which leads me to believe that there's a lot of working behind the scenes to close this deal, get some settlements in here out the door, because the one thing you don't want to do is give up a lot, because if you're going to the Denver Broncos, let's just say he does go there, and you think the Broncos are going to have a good season, well, that could stymie the entire season right off the bat by him being suspended 6 games and their team never gets off the ground to start with. That's the hard part here. But as a fit, I really think it does make a lot of sense for him to go to Denver because he can step right in there, be a dynamic quarterback, and if he's playing all 17 games, he should be able to make a difference. But you're right. The fit coming in, it doesn't feel like he can go really anywhere else. Now, the Eagles will not say anything about Jalen Hurts. Like, you can ask them point blank right now. They have 2 quarterbacks in camp, him and Flacco. And like, quarterback competition out here, which is really odd. Usually you say, this is my guy. He's young. He's going to get the reins. He's going to lead us. And he goes like, hey, man, we're not going to put him on any season tickets, talk about him at all. And it's a competition, which Howie Roseman has been hot on the trail for Deshaun Watson for a long time. So have the Denver Broncos looking to get that extra piece. But when you're trying to factor in, the legalities of him moving around, the NFL is a cutthroat business because Greg Hardy was out here just about to go to jail, guns, women, threatening them, violence. And Jerry Jones like, I like to make him a captain on my football team. He's that good of a football. So they don't really care. Like,
that's
if
true.
you can perform on the field, they will take a lot of heat. And look no further than the Philadelphia Eagles back in the day with Michael Vick. Gets out of jail for dogfighting. People are furious. The Eagles sign him up. But once he looked like he was the old Michael Vick, it was like, oh, my God, love it, love it. People will forget as long as you're a good athlete, Kyle.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and it helped that, he was going to be replacing Kevin Kolb. I mean, for Christ's sakes, who wouldn't want Michael Vick over Kevin Kolb, right? I mean, I think that was the guy, right? He was the backup, but it's Kevin
Kolb got a concussion opening day, and Mike Vick came in, and I remember sitting in the stands. That was the day the Eagles wore the throwback Kelly Greens. They ended up losing the Green Bay that day, but all it took was like 5 plays to be like, holy cow. And I remember Andy Reid, after that week, was like, no, Kevin Kolb's our starter. And like a day later, he's like, guys, Mike Vick's going forward. Like, yeah, we thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yes, it's not so much that, like Denver, if they got Deshaun Watson, holy crap, that's a good team. And those young receivers, they would be highly regarded. They'd be one of the favorites. The problem is, I know they let Greg Hardy play, etc., but I find it really unlikely that they're going to let this. The NFL can't do that. The NFL will acquiesce to their sponsorships, to their fans, and nobody's going to be like, hey, don't punish Deshaun Watson until the legal process plays through. They don't care. As soon there's enough smoke there where the problem is he's just not going to be available. That's the bottom line. He's just not going to be there. A team like the Vegas Raiders, Raiders take chances on players with character issues. Could they use a legitimate quarterback outside of Derek Carr? Absolutely. Derek Carr is terrible. They would be so much better with Deshaun Watson. So maybe the Raiders, if Dak Prescott was still hurt, the Cowboys would be a team that would say, hey, screw it. We don't care what's going on with him. We'll do it. But I don't know if I could see John Elway pulling the trigger on a guy going through all that stuff. That's the problem. They'd be very good. It's a huge upgrade, no doubt about it. He's an upgrade for 28, 29 teams in the league, maybe 30 teams in the league. But I don't know, all that weirdness. It's going to be an awkward. The Deshaun Watson thing is just awkward now. It's weird, and the NFL needs to make a decision sooner rather than later so these teams can move on and decide what they want to do at quarterback, because it looks like to me he's going to be suspended.
Or is it maybe a throwaway season for a team? Like the Denver Broncos say, well, we'll sit him out this year. We'll still have him on, as a good young quarterback for the next decade, and we'll eat 6 games here, and then hopefully he clears it out and he'll be eligible to play. I think that's what most teams are waiting to look at. But I always find it interesting with my Philadelphia Eagles how to Jalen Hurts, it doesn't appear anywhere, and they don't even give him a pat on the back. It's kind of crazy to treat a young quarterback like that, because if you just look in the rear view mirror for the Eagles, it was like, hey, let's just draft quarterbacks and really put Carson Wentz under the microscope. And if he doesn't succeed, it's because we pushed him and prodded him and didn't support him. He's doing the same thing with Jalen Hurts. So we'll see what happens as it boils out. But to me,
what does Donnie's face look like that first Sunday morning show, week 1? We pop in, it's 9 a.m. my time, noon Eastern. Mm-hmm. And the Eagles have said, you know what? Joe Flacco looks so good in camp. He's our starting quarterback. What does your face look like that morning? That's got to be painful.
Yeah, no, it won't. I mean, you just fade the Eagles and you keep it moving at this point. But
that's it.
My goodness, oh goodness. But even looking at the Denver Broncos here, Kyle, taking a look at what they got at wide receiver, I mean, they're exciting. They have a group of guys here that can really get after it. And then you take a look at running back, boosting it up a little bit here. Still going to have Melvin Gordon, but you get Javonte Williams. So they have an exciting offense. If you add a legitimate quarterback outside of Drew Lock throwing interceptions on 1st and goal from the 5-yard line, you might have something here for the Broncos. So something to keep an eye on over the summer. The one thing I'm going to ask you, Kyle, before we move to the next topic, to me, I'm going to answer it first. I'm going to let you go. There's no way. Deshaun Watson is not going to be a Texan in September. There's no way. So he's got to go somewhere, right?
Yeah, he's got to go somewhere.
So? Yeah.
I think so. I really do. It wouldn't shock me if Houston's like, you know what, we're just going to hang on to him until maybe we can get a higher value in the offseason around draft time. They got the poor Texans. They got burned on this one. They were going to get look at that 49er trade to move up to 3. That's what they were going to get for Deshaun Watson, and probably from the 49ers, quite frankly. I think that is exactly the trade they were going to do. It's so hard, but I don't see him going to play for the Texans. Why on earth would he? He's already stated it over and over and over again, and that's just ugly, and the Texans probably don't want him back now either. It's the weirdest offseason. It's just weird. It's just really, really weird. The circumstances around it are weird. He's been really, really quiet about all this. Man, it's just weird. You have to be careful when you talk about it almost. It's just the whole thing's weird. And yeah, I don't know how much Deshaun Watson we see in 2021. Kind of sad. It's kind of sad because it was an exciting offseason story. The best quarterback available at this age that we've had, in the modern era, really. And it turned into this. Kind of sad.
Yeah, he's going to go for a lot. I mean, he's going to still, regardless of what happens here, they're not going to be able to give him away. Let me get a 1 and a 2 and see what happens here. They're going to get a king's ransom, and I think people will give it to him just depending. And I'll wrap it up by saying the fact that you haven't heard much out of any lawyers or the Texans or anything, that's usually a very good sign that behind the scenes you're working to a conclusion. And all right, I'll be suspended 2 games. I paid out, $400,000. We have non-disclosures out here. This story is dead and done. He told Deshaun, hey man, keep it in-house here. No IG models giving you massages all over the Houston metro area. So we'll keep moving here. Julio Jones to the Titans. It finally went through, and I thought it was a perfect spot for him to land. So the question here, Kyle, moving up is, now that we know Julio is a Titan, looks really good and healthy in the offseason, which we'll see if that changes over towards the regular season. But does this make the Titans the best team now in the AFC South?
For sure it does. I thought they were the best team coming in anyways. The defense still needs some work, but that offense was going to be good. It's a good move by them. I think it's a good move by both teams, right? Like the Falcons getting a second-round pick for a guy who just never proven to stay healthy, at least not in the last 5 years, is a good thing. The Titans, they let Jonnu Smith go. Obviously, he went to New England. They let Corey Davis go. He goes to the Jets. I didn't know who the number 2 option was going to be for them. I was trying to think of that little guy who was their kick returner. That's the only other receiver, Anthony Firkser, I guess. So they needed somebody. So this is really good for the Titans. Now, the problem is for them, can he stay healthy? And I know, he looks really healthy now, but all it takes is he's going to jump up, make that one freak catch that nobody else can make, and his ankle's going to give away, and that's going to be the problem. If he stays healthy, even if he doesn't, I think the Titans win that division. They're just so much better than that's a weak division, and that's going to help Julio stay healthy. There's no secondary in the AFC South. You're like, hey, these guys are physical. You're going to be well covered. It's going to be tough. He's going to be open for 6 divisional games. I mean, plain and simple. Jacksonville secondary, horrendous. Houston secondary, horrendous. Colts secondary took a screen in the right direction, or a step in the right direction the first half of last year, and then they were horrendous the second half of the year. Let's call it what it is. So he's got easier matchups. It's a good division to be in. I do think the Titans are the best team. If he stays fully healthy and plays all 16 games and can be a contributor, that's the best 1-2 punch at wide receiver in the NFL. In my opinion, I guess you could argue Jefferson and Thielen, Evans and Godwin, but Julio, A.J. Brown's tough to argue against. Good trade by both teams. I do hope he stays healthy. I have a small futures bet on the Titans at 33-1 to win the AFC. And that line cut in half as soon as they signed Julio Jones. I think that's an overreaction. But, Titans best team in the AFC South, I think, with or without Julio Jones, certainly now with him.
Yeah, Lockett and DK also. I mean, but you're right. If I'm just asking, I need one group of wide receivers to get out there. If Julio, we always preface this by saying if he's healthy, that's a dynamic duo because it's not just so much even, Kyle, about what you're getting from the wide receiver position. You have to also look at what that running game is going to give you and how much room now you're going to have to operate with that play action pass. So something comes into the fold. The odds currently right now, just looking at FanDuel, the Colts, a +110, the Titans, a +110 now, neck and neck in that division in the AFC South. I'm still going to give it to the Colts overall because if I'm asking from top of the roster to bottom, including head coach, I like the Colts a little bit more. But when you add really good pieces, if they stay healthy, a la Julio Jones, it never hurts your cause. So something that we could certainly keep an eye on as we keep it moving forward. Another thing to keep an eye on, Kyle, we know that you do a lot of work in DFS. This is going to be interesting, a la the New England Patriots trying to load up with 2 tight ends. You got 2 pretty good ones here, and all the indications out of Atlanta camp. Hayden Hurst looks fantastic, and they are force-feeding Pitts at tight end to get him ready. That is going to be a dynamic duo out there. So when you're talking about mismatches, these guys run as well basically as wide receivers, particularly Pitts. That should be a pretty good combination over the middle. It's a shame that Julio Jones moves now on from Atlanta to Tennessee because it would be a really dynamic duo from wide receiver to tight ends here at Atlanta.
Yeah, agreed. And they paid a lot to get Hayden Hurst. It was a second-round pick that they traded for Baltimore to get Hayden Hurst. He didn't have the biggest year. I drafted him a little bit higher in my fantasy leagues than I probably should have. I
Hmm.
expected more from him. It's just that Matt Ryan didn't go to him. It's a weird offense. The Falcons' offense is weird. It was weird last year, anyways, and they'd have these tendencies to go to the, you know, Justin Gage and or Russell Gage
Yep.
and Olamide Zacchaeus while he was still healthy. We'll have to see. Has there really been a tight end that's had this monster year under Matt Ryan? I'm trying to think, and it's
Tony
going to be different.
Gonzalez. I mean, Gonzalez
Yeah,
had some
yeah,
pretty good
yeah.
years
He
with
was
them.
okay. He was okay with the younger Matt Ryan. So that's fair. You're gonna have Calvin Ridley taking the top off. I mean, he's gonna be a target monster and drafted
Mhm.
super high in fantasy drafts. You'll probably get Hayden Hurst at a premium this year. He's going to be cheaper. If you look at those daily, those millionaire makers and
Yep.
sort of things, you're going to get him cheap and he's going to have some upside there. It'll be interesting to see. Will they run the two tight end sets as much as, say the New England's did last year, etc.? I have to see it to believe it. Right now, you think they're just going to go to Kyle Pitts a lot, but I like Hayden Hurst. They gave up a lot for him. They paid him a lot. He's a well paid number two tight end now. I don't think it makes the Falcons a threat. Like I've seen some shows like, the Buccaneers' path to the Super Bowl got easier because Julio Jones is not in Atlanta. I'm like, what the hell are you? How many games are the Falcons going to win with Julio Jones, anyways?
Exactly.
Not that many. I don't think it's going to change much. I really don't. Uh, I know, our co-host Kelsey Kramer, she loves the Falcons, and we always like to root for that. But I think it's going to be a tough year for the Falcons. I think it would have been whether they had Julio Jones or not. Um, yeah, it'll be fun. The two tight end sets will be fun. I'll be looking for some value every week with Hayden Hurst. I will be.
Yeah, from an Eagles perspective here, I did love the fact that Julio Jones is not going to be there because the one game you could probably count on Julio Jones being there and fully healthy, Kyle, is probably game one. So the Eagles
That's
won't
right.
have to get it used and abused on the outside. But then again, you're going to have some issues here with that double combo set. Ridley's still a very good wide receiver as well. So we'll see how Atlanta pulls through. Not expecting a lot from the Falcons this year, but I guess the two young tight ends can be a beacon of light for the future once they start that rebuilding process. Matt Ryan gets older. Who's your new quarterback going to be? We're going to head down that path in but probably by 2022 at this point, once those large cap hits for Matt Ryan are out the window. Now, let's get over to those Dallas Cowboys here as we take a look because Dak Prescott looking healthy as we anticipated, bank account looking healthy, just signed a massive deal with Jordan Brand to represent them and be the highest athlete on their roster, the power of being a Dallas Cowboys quarterback. And as I look overall at the NFC East, if Dak Prescott is healthy, he is so far the best quarterback in the division. And it's like if we equate it to Major League Baseball, when you have the most dominant pitcher in your division and he can pitch every single night, you're probably going to win the division. I don't like the
Yeah.
Cowboys. I don't like their defense. I don't like their head coach. But just by default, Daniel Jones stinks. I don't know what I'm getting out of Jalen Hurts. Fitzpatrick will be so much fun and they'll go 7 and whatever.
Hmm.
It's because he's not a
Yeah.
good quarterback overall. Hey, Fitz to Washington, watch out. Yeah, go back and hit Google and be like Ryan Fitzpatrick getting his teams to the playoffs. See what you find in that aspect.
Yeah.
So, Kyle, looking at the Dallas Cowboys, playoff chances for the Cowboys for me, they're real. They should win
Yeah.
the division. But then again, don't we say this all the time with the Cowboys?
Yeah, we do say it all. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. The only reason, I mean, hit the nail on the head. The only reason they have a chance at making the playoffs is because they're in the NFC East. That's it. Plain and simple. Maybe if they were in the AFC South, they'd have a chance as well, I suppose. Uh, God, the Cowboys. I won't bet on the Cowboys. You'll never, ever catch me making a futures bet on the Dallas Cowboys. I don't hate myself that much, and they're going to be hamstrung again by the dumbest head coach in the NFL. He's not a good coach. He doesn't understand the game of football. It's not a good front office. Jerry Jones is way too involved with everything. The whole team is an absolute dumpster fire outside of that quarterback and that wide receiving core. I mean, that Zeke Elliott, okay, yeah, I suppose if you want to still put him in the top 10 running backs, didn't look great to me last year, but of course, it's different circumstances. But the skill position players in that division, it's the Cowboys by head and shoulders above all the other teams. So, of course, it gives them a shot. It won't shock me if they're in the playoffs. It also won't shock me if
Yeah.
they're tied with someone to make the playoffs in the last week of the season and get the brakes beaten right off of them because that's what the Cowboys do. Yeah. I mean, yeah, they should make the playoffs. There's reason for hope for Cowboys fans that you'll be watching meaningful football in January. But I certainly wouldn't put my life on it. That's for damn sure.
I tell you what's interesting because you take a look at the FanDuel Sportsbook, which is just the book I'm using today. I don't want to flip around and be like, hey, let's shop around 8 different lines. To make the playoffs, the Dallas Cowboys, a minus 156. So a pretty good favorite, Kyle, to get in there. If you're looking at a no number for the Dallas Cowboys, it's plus 128. But to me, just looking in, I put a lot of stock in quarterbacks. Their offense is going to be humming next year if they stay healthy, which you could say that just about for every NFL team.
Sure.
I like Washington's defense. I don't know what I'm getting out of the Giants or the Philadelphia Eagles at this point. So it always leads me in the direction of the Cowboys, where if they play good offense, you have the extra playoff team. They should be able to get in the playoffs. So we'll see what happens for the Cowboys, but always something that we want to talk about. And while we were just getting after the Washington Redskins, the Washington football team. By the way, Kyle, real quick, we're going to talk Washington right now.
God.
Picking a name I don't understand. Is it an algorithm? It takes 37 years? I know teams that just came out of nowhere in one half of a day, picked their team name, and everybody was happy. The Washington football team, I will never call them the Washington football team. It's ridiculous because of the super incompetency of the Washington Redskins down there. Pick a team name. Pick 5 names out of a hat. Boom, the Warriors. And they're like, hey, all right, we're the Warriors. Let's go ahead. The Washington Warriors. But the fact that you have a generic W that looks like you made it off Microsoft Word in 1996, and that's the name of your team, and you think it's cool, and you're reading the press clip, it's like, we're going to get around to it. Get around to it. The minute you said we're not going to be called the Redskins, in 24 hours, you should have had a new name ready to go.
Yeah, the W. It reminds me of one of those codes you had to put on MS-DOS show when computers were first coming out. Remember, like, we just want to play the Oregon Trail on floppy disk. What the hell? Like, what the fuck is going on with Washington? And we've talked about this. Imagine buying a puppy and you don't name it for a year and a half. You just call it dog or puppy. If you did that to a kid, we've talked about this, they would become a serial killer. If the baby's name was that kid or my son for the first 18 months of their life, serial killer. Write it down. Washington, hit me up. I'll give you a name that gets over 52% approval rating from your fans for $1 million. I'll do it for you in 5 minutes. You can come up with any name I will call you the Washington Pianos. We'll get 52%. We'll have a cool little jersey with keys on it, and you're good to go. It's the dumbest thing. I'll never understand. I cannot understand how they still don't have it. They're just chilling back like, screw it. We don't want to do anything. We'll collect money and have the dumbest name in all of sports. Ridiculous.
Yep. And another interesting one as well, where we talk about, like, Ron Rivera is usually not Harry High School. He's been around the NFL a long time. Yeah. When I always laugh and poke fun at Joe Judge, because he'd be the most amazing, little league football coach in the world for like 6th and 7th graders, getting them to believe and do all this stuff with competition. Are you telling me the Washington Redskins called up Ryan Fitzpatrick and said, we'd like you to come in and compete? And he's like, you know what? I've been in the league like 20 years, man. Are you giving me a starting job, or am I just going to retire here and take care of my family and kids? So the fact that Rivera just comes out of nowhere and is like, hey, the job is up for grabs. What are we doing here in the pros? Same thing with the Eagles. Jalen Hurts is your quarterback. And either that, you must be telling behind the scenes, hey, Jalen, bro, we love you. The minute Deshaun Watson is available, we are going to throw you into the Schuylkill River and be like, hey, bro, it was nice knowing you. Get out of town. Because unless I'm hearing something different, it's Fitzpatrick doesn't start game 1. What was the point?
There's no point. No, you're not starting Taylor. Okay, Taylor Heineke looked all right week 17, and they actually did come they lost Tampa Bay by 2 points. But get the hell out of here. Taylor, of course it's Ryan Fitzpatrick. And it's the perfect situation. Look, you touched on it. Go look up Ryan Fitzpatrick playoff wins. You're going to find more 7-interception games than you are playoff wins, okay? That's what's going to happen. We know how it goes. But he's got to be your guy. You need it. You're going to have a great defense. You've got a really solid young running back. You've got an absolute burner on the outside in McLaurin. You bring in Curtis. You need someone who knows how to do it. Are you going to have the 4-interception games with Fitzpatrick? Of course you are. Probably fewer than normal because he's in the NFC East this year. And all of those defenses, absolutely stink. Nonetheless, he's the only guy that can be your quarterback. He's fun, exciting. I hope for the NFL. I hope for me. I'm going to love this Washington team this year. I love that defense. If they can average 20 points a game, Washington is winning this division and going to the playoffs. I'm telling you that right now. Uh, yeah, it's no competition. If they start Taylor Heineke, it's a riot in Washington, right? It's a riot. It has to be.
Even though I would like to see it, if you're asking me, I would rather go Heineke for your future than obviously Fitzpatrick. Sure. But you're right about it. It's just interesting doings. And also getting back to the Washington Redskins, Washington football team name. The thing that I always laugh about as well is it took me a while to get the San Diego Chargers out of my head to call the Los Angeles Chargers. But they changed their name. It was never like, well, we were San Diego. We're just going to leave it as the Chargers. So you're like, well, I don't know, San Diego Chargers then.
The homeless Chargers. That's what we're going to be. Come on.
Washington football team. I remember when they first came out, I was like, this has got to be written by the Onion. They're called the football team. Like, come up with a name, or at least do the right thing and say, like, the Cleveland Indians want to change their name. For what reason, I have no idea, but they want to change their name. They didn't say we're the Cleveland baseball team until further notice. They said, look, we're going to get rid of the Indians name, but we're the Cleveland Indians until we change our name. What was wrong with the Washington Redskins saying, you know what, we don't have a team name ready. Give us 12 months, we'll have another team, but we're still going to be the Redskins until our name changes. It doesn't make any sense, but what makes any sense under Daniel Snyder's ownership there down in Washington? Final thoughts here before we get out. Aaron Rodgers, whispers coming out here. He might not show up till week 3 or 4 of the NFL season. And I sit back and say to myself, Green Bay is built to make a run here in the NFC and maybe a Super Bowl run as well if he's the quarterback under game 1. If you're Aaron Rodgers, why would you come back in game 4, miss 3 big-time game checks, find out the wazoo over the summer, and then possibly come back to a team, let's just say week 4, where you come back week 4 after the 4th game, and you're 1-3. So now you haven't been around the team. You're behind the 8 ball. You're probably now not going to get a bye, which is what you fight for because you want home field advantage in Green Bay until the Super Bowl. Yeah. What purpose would that serve? Either Aaron Rodgers shows up before game 1 or he says, I have enough money. I'll just go be a Jeopardy guy for the rest of my life. I don't care about football. Showing up in week 4 to me, Kyle, is maybe the dumbest thing I've heard that's being floated out there.
And I don't think that's what's going to happen. So the same day I read that same article, I read another one where his close friends are like, look, he's told us he's not going to any Packers football activity, whether it's a regular season game, a preseason game, a practice, or an OTA. And we sort of talked about this, like, no, Aaron Rodgers will be back. They're going to figure this out. There's not a lot of options. I don't know. I'm starting to read the tea leaves, and it's looking more and more like Aaron Rodgers will not mind sitting out. Remember, this is a highly intellectual guy that has a ton of other interests. He's not a football-first guy. He never has been. He never will be. He is not a football-first guy, and he's got plenty of money. It's like, oh, they're fining me $50,000. If he decides to come back, they will wipe all of those fines away like they never existed. He's not being fined a damn thing. He doesn't give a shit about that money anyways. Dude has $250 million plus in his bank account. Yeah. I don't think Aaron Rodgers is playing for the Packers this year. I really don't. Everything that I see says, trade me or I'm sitting out. And I think if you're Roger Goodell, aren't you like, hey, listen, we need Aaron Rodgers on the field. We need those TV dollars. Trade him to somebody. Figure it out. The problem is Green Bay is owned by the town with weird people running. Who the hell do you call? Who's actually in charge of the Packers? Is it
like,
Don
is it really
from
so
the
simple that he say if you just fire Gutekunst, the GM, that he's going to walk back in? It doesn't seem like that, but there's no way. Because they are a smaller market team. They're not trading Aaron Rodgers. There is no chance that the Green Bay Packers are letting him get out of town, because the same topic we've talked about, Kyle, before, you got really lucky here. And you got lucky because you did make the right draft picks and the right trades, getting Brett Favre and then handing it off to Aaron Rodgers. Yeah. Once Green Bay, let me set this straight for the people that don't understand. Green Bay, for the longest time before Brett Favre, teams in the NFL, let's just say the Miami Dolphins, you don't get your butt in gear, I'm going to trade you to the Packers. No, I'll take a pay cut to stay here.
It's true. It's called the Bay of Pigs, right? The Bay of Pigs, Tampa Bay, Green Bay. They were the worst 2 teams in the league. The worst 2. Green Bay, they had Don Majkowski. That's it. Since Bart Starr, it was the only player. Sterling Sharp and Dan Majkowski were the only, Don Majkowski, the Magic Man. The Packers were dreadful. When I was a kid, the Packers were the worst team in the league every year. right?
No, absolutely correct. You're right. But it's also from a point where you're sending NFL players to, if let's just say if you go to Miami, it's a party city. If you go to Philadelphia, it's a big city. Boston, big city. Chicago, big city. Even Minneapolis, big city. You basically go to Green Bay and there is nothing there but minus 20 temperatures. It feels like NFL players want a nightlife. NFL players want to live on, 80-degree weather. It's like, hey, man, you're going to trade me to the Chargers? Sign me up. You're going to trade me to the Rams? Sign me up. That's why. You're going to trade me to the Dolphins? Fantastic stuff. Nobody wants to go to Siberia, which is Green Bay. But they've gotten lucky where they'll deal with it because, hey, I got Brett Favre. I got Aaron Rodgers. We're going to win games. It's going to be fun. But outside of that, the Packers have always sold out Lambeau Field. But the Packers in the late 70s and good portions of the 80s were a horrendous franchise. Why? Because players would say, I don't want to go there. Don't trade me there.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Who would I live in small town Oregon and it's cold as hell, and I feel like going to Green Bay, Wisconsin would be because then I'd have to walk around and see a bunch of idiots with cheese on their head. I can't personally do it. And I can't imagine an NFL player making millions more dollars than me going, yeah, let's go to Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers. Not going to happen. Aaron Rodgers has all the leverage here. I don't care what the Packers say. He has all of the leverage here. Packers have absolutely none. So they better hope these little bullshit stories out of practice. Oh, Jordan Love threw a 30-yard touchdown to Aaron Jones. He looks so good. Yeah, you better hope so. You better hope so because it's going to get ugly. It feels like Green Bay is about to be a cesspool in the NFL again. That's what it feels
it'll feel like it. It'll feel like it. We'll see what happens here. And again, when they always preach that the Green Bay Packers, Kyle, will say, hey, look how good they are. They don't have to go out and sign free agents. No, they don't sign free agents because they're cheap, because they have Aaron Rodgers who covers up every one of their bad moves that they make. So watch you not draft. Get rid of Aaron Rodgers. Don't draft that well and don't sign free agents. We'll see how really good the Green Bay Packers are over the next decade here. Well, that'll wrap things up here for the NFL show on a Friday, a spirited show heading into the weekend. This is what we do each and every Friday. Get a little huddle here, talk about what's going on, the hot topics of the NFL, because before you know it, we will be in September. The Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will be kicking off, and we'll be having some fun doing that. Thanks for joining us today on a Football Friday right here at sportsbookreview.com. I'm Donnie Seymour. He's Kyle Purviance. Good luck on those future wagers in the NFL. We'll see you next time.